I was going to be drafted into the Army, and when it came up my turn to be drafted, I did not want to go into the holes, and so I joined the Navy.
Okay.
And I was trained at Great Lakes in Chicago,
Okay.
and from there, we went to Norfolk. The whole gang went to Norfolk. We didn't know what was going to happen, and we stayed there for a couple of days, and I got on actually a cruise ship that didn't have a ship for us to go on, and did not know where we were going, but we were on that for a couple of days, and we ended up in Bermuda. And the guys that I was with. So they checked us in there, and I worked around in there for a time. And Bermuda was the island that we were protecting because it was so close to the States. And they had cruises, or shakedown cruises, shakedown, what would I say, of the ships
Okay.
that they were building in the States. They were building them so fast.
Right.
And so they had to have shakedowns. So they brought this ship in, which was a repair ship. And they docked that repair ship there, and took some of the men from the island we were on the island there, and others they brought in also. And on that ship, it was nothing but repair items.
Okay.
We had the very best of all the equipment that was available at that time. And it was not only machinery, I was in the machine shop. There was the woodworking, there was the electric, there was just everything that we could repair up ships up to cruisers. And they were putting ships out so fast in the States that they weren't all together, you might say. So
Okay.
they had what they called shakedown cruises.
So they would send them to you guys in Bermuda.
They
And you would
would be on a
finish
shakedown,
them.
yes,
Okay.
they would be on a shakedown cruise, and something would go wrong with them, so they would bring them in to our ship instead of having to take them into the States to have things done.
Okay.
And so we would repair those ships, and those were all new crews on them, all young guys,
Wow.
crews, and they'd go back out again. And I don't know how long they were on shakedown before they went into battle, but that was our job, is to repair. And we could repair anything on that ship that needed repair, because we had all the facilities and all the men that were trained to do that particular part,
Mm-hmm.
like the electricians and the woodworking and
Right.
the metal. We could make parts and so forth.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was our job.
Okay.
And so when I started, I was a second-class machinist, and I stayed on the ship until the war was over, and became a chief machinist.
Did you?
I joined in 42.
Okay.
Uh,
First part of 42. Where were
yes.
you living? Where were you living at the time?
I was living in Grand Rapids, Michigan
Okay.
at the time.
How old were you when you joined?
About 21 or 22.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so so when you left Norfolk, you didn't know where you were going?
No way. They didn't
didn't
tell
tell you?
anyone. No. And I called my folks there the last night, and this is probably the reason that they never told anybody, because of security, you know.
Yeah.
And so I called my folks, and they asked me, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I have no idea, but we're going out tomorrow." They told you.
It could have been
told-
anywhere.
Could have been anywhere. Could have been anywhere.
Wow.
A lot of them that were in our school. See, I went to school at Great Lakes
Okay.
for 3 months.
For the machinist?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So you knew
I-
you were going to do machine work.
I knew I was going to be someplace, whether I was going to be in that type of machinist or something on the ship in the boiler room or whatever they had.
Okay.
You didn't know at that
Wow.
time. And I came out of the class, a second class. I went in as a seaman and came out as a second class,
Okay.
and then worked my way up as from time to time to first class and then to chief machinist.
Yeah.
I had a friend in Grand Rapids when we were kids, and in our church in the summertime, the choirs didn't meet in the summertime, and they exchanged with other churches of specials for the choir. And this young fella that was about my age, his name was Don DeBoss, he came and played his horn one Sunday night.
Okay.
And I went up and talked to him afterwards, and we became buddies. And he went to Moody. And after he found out, we kind of kept in touch with each other. And he found out that I was in Bermuda. And when he got out of Moody, he wrote to me. And he said, I have a choice of going to two places. I have a choice of going to Bermuda, and there was another place that he could go. And what do you think? Could we do in Bermuda in a spiritual way there? So I wrote him back and I told him to come and we'd do something. And he signed up and he came. And it wasn't too long after that. They were just starting Youth for Christ then, in those days. And we started a Youth for Christ, the first Youth for Christ out of the States.
Really?
We had in Bermuda.
Okay.
And there were 3 of us that did it. But we had to get permission, and if we could start it, and they granted permission, and they checked on a place to meet, and it was in a hall that we could meet on Saturday nights.
Okay.
And to start it, we put an ad in the paper, in their local paper in Hamilton. Hamilton was the capital of Bermuda.
Yeah.
It still is.
Uh-huh.
And we had that, put that full page, and it never had anything like that. Youth for Christ. And it started that way.
Really?
And we outgrew the hall and had to go to the Methodist church to meet.
Okay.
And after the war, Helen and I, after we got married, we went to Bermuda on a trip, and we were going to take a cruise around Bermuda. And we got in a cab, and I told the cab driver that I'd been here during the war, and we had a Youth for Christ up on the hill.
Okay.
But I said, the building is not there anymore. And he said, no, they tore that building down. They built a new one. But he said, I went there. And I said, you did? Yeah, and he was a little older then, too.
Okay.
But he got saved in our Youth for Christ.
Really?
So it was very encouraging
That's great.
to find
Good.
somebody that was driving a cab that went to our Youth for Christ and
Yeah.
it was saved.
That's tremendous.
And we also had a Gideon that came to the meetings, a Christian man, and he could not get Bibles
Okay.
into Bermuda during the war. And I said, I might be able to do that. I know a Gideon. I know of a Gideon. And he said, well, check it out. So I wrote I knew that Zondervan was a Gideon in Grand Rapids. And I wrote to Zondervan Publishing House, Grand Rapids, Michigan. I did not have an address.
Okay.
And they got it. And Pat Zondervan wrote right back to me, and he said, we'll send you as many Bibles as you wish. But they couldn't get them into Bermuda during the war. See, they
Right.
wouldn't send them.
Yeah.
But we'll send them to your ship.
Okay.
They sent 100 Bibles to my ship. And those guys went crazy on that ship, that VanHorn guy.
Crazy VanHorn guy.
Crazy VanHorn guy. But I was able to get a boat to take them ashore over to Hamilton. And on a Sunday afternoon, we went to the hospital and we distributed a good portion of those Bibles in the hospital on a Sunday afternoon. And Zondervan said, when you get out of the war, I want to meet you, or when you come home, I want to meet you. So when I got a furlough, I came home and I went in to meet them, and there were two of them, and they, of course, took me out to lunch. Boy, that was something.
Yeah.
And said that after the war, we want to get acquainted with you.
Okay.
So after the war, I went back to them, and after I'd had a job out in the West Coast for a time, they wanted to hire me.
Okay.
And I became their salesman, and I worked for Zondervan for 31 years as a sales rep.
Amazing. Sorry.
I got discharged out in Bremerton
Okay.
in 45.